It was 1956. The world was holding its breath, perched on the edge of a new era. But in London, the old ways still echoed through the foggy streets. Britain still fancied itself a global superpower, clinging to the pride and pomp of its imperial past, convinced that its influence stretched from the heart of London to the farthest corners of the globe. But the world had moved on. New giants were rising. America and the Soviet Union, while former colonies demanded freedom in the streets of Africa and Asia. The old order was crumbling, and Britain was struggling to keep up. The Suez Canal crisis exposed just how out of touch Britain was. The canal, a vital artery for global trade and a symbol of imperial power, became the stage for a dramatic showdown. Britain, France, and Israel invaded Egypt, hoping to reclaim the canal. It was supposed to be a show of strength, a bold move to remind the world who was in charge. But the world was watching and judging. Instead, it was a disaster. The US, now the real superpower, told Britain to back off, using financial threats, not force. President Eisenhower made it clear. The age of gunboat diplomacy was over. Eisenhower threatened to crash the British pound by dumping UK bonds. Britain, deep in debt after 2 world wars, had no choice but to retreat. The threat wasn't just military, it was economic, and it was devastating. The world saw the truth. Britain's power was a memory, not a reality. The headlines screamed defeat, and the public watched in disbelief as their leaders scrambled for answers. The Suez Crisis wasn't just a military defeat, it was a humiliation that revealed the empire's decline. Soldiers returned home, not as heroes, but as symbols of a fading era. The British pound, once king, was exposed as weak. The financial markets trembled, and the world's confidence in Britain evaporated almost overnight. The empire's authority vanished, not with a bang, but with a financial whimper. The grand map of the British Empire began to fade, its colors bleeding away into history. The sun set on the British Empire in the Egyptian sand, under America's glare. The world order had shifted, and Britain was no longer at the center. The lesson? A global power can collapse overnight, not from war, but from losing control of its money. Economic might, not military muscle, now decided the fate of nations. Suez showed how quickly trust and power can evaporate. Alliances shifted, markets panicked, and the world learned that confidence is as fragile as glass. The story of Suez is a warning. Superpowers don't always fade away slowly. Sometimes, history moves in sudden, brutal jolts. Sometimes they fall off a cliff. One moment, they stand tall. The next, they're gone, swept away by forces they can't control. And if you think this is just ancient history, think again. The world's balance of power is always shifting, and no nation is immune. Because history loves a sequel. The lessons of Suez echo today, reminding us that the fall of a superpower can happen faster than anyone expects. How did Britain become so powerful, rising from a small island nation to the world's most dominant empire? It wasn't the tea, the weather, or even the vastness of its colonies. It was the pound sterling, the beating heart of British power. For over a century, the British pound was the world's reserve currency, the gold standard for global trade and finance. Everyone wanted pounds. Merchants, bankers, and governments across continents clamored for British currency, eager to hold a piece of the empire's promise. This gave Britain a unique superpower. It could buy anything, anywhere, simply by printing more money. The pound opened doors that armies could not. The world trusted the pound so deeply that countries stored their savings in it, creating an endless, almost insatiable demand for British money. Britain's mighty navy protected trade routes. Trade fueled the pound's dominance, and the pound, in turn, funded the empire's expansion, a self-reinforcing loop of power and prosperity. In many ways, the pound was more powerful than any army or fleet. It was the invisible force behind Britain's global reach. Britain could run up debts that would crush any other nation, because the world kept lending it money, confident that the pound would always hold its value. It was like having a limitless credit card, a financial magic trick that let Britain live beyond its means for decades. But this incredible power came with a hidden weakness, a fatal flaw. If the world ever lost faith in the pound, the entire system would unravel overnight. And that's exactly what happened. When trust wavered, panic spread, and the empire's financial foundation began to crack. The empire's strength was built not just on gold or guns, but on the world's trust in its currency, a trust that proved fragile. When that trust faded, so did Britain's power. The pound's fall signaled the end of an era, and the empire's influence slipped away. The lesson is clear. Global dominance is only as strong as the world's faith in your money. Lose that trust, and even the mightiest empire can crumble. Lose that, and you lose everything. In the end, it's all about the money, honey. Siwa. By the early 20th century, Britain was losing its edge. New powers, Germany and the US, had better factories and more productive workers. Britain's industries were aging, its share of global trade shrinking, but its leaders were in denial, clinging to the myth of British exceptionalism. Instead of modernizing, they doubled down on the empire, which was becoming a costly burden. The colonies drained the treasury, the economy weakened. Britain was borrowing more, producing less, and the pound's foundation was eroding. The world noticed the cracks, even if Britain didn't. The empire stood, but on hollow ground. All it needed was a push, and 2 world wars would provide it. After World War I, Britain made a fatal mistake. Drowning in debt, it tried to restore the pound to its pre-war value, pure vanity. This made British goods expensive, and exports collapsed. Unemployment soared, the economy stagnated. Yet Britain refused to cut military spending, clinging to its global role. It was borrowing to fund an empire it could no longer afford. World War II finished the job. Britain sold off assets, took massive US loans, and emerged bankrupt. The pound survived only by American grace. The empire was a hollow shell, and Suez exposed it to the world. Britain sacrificed its future to protect the illusion of power. The real economy was gone. Only the symbol remained. The fall was inevitable. Now, let's talk about the United States in 2026. Sound familiar? A global power, drowning in debt, facing rising rivals, and held together by its reserve currency. The US national debt is over $40 trillion, an unimaginable sum. Decades of overspending have been possible only because the world needs dollars. But what happens when that changes? America spends more on its military than the next 10 countries combined, policing the world while its own infrastructure crumbles. Like Britain, it's sacrificing domestic health for global power. Meanwhile, China is rising fast, building the future while America struggles to maintain the past. US leaders, like Britain's before them, are in denial about the scale of the challenge. They act as if American supremacy is guaranteed, but history says otherwise. The warning signs are everywhere. The cost of empire is hollowing out the nation. The world is changing, and America is repeating Britain's mistakes. It's not 1995 anymore. Britain propped up the pound with the sterling area, a financial walled garden of colonies forced to use pounds. It was a short-term fix for a long-term decline. America's version? The petrodollar system. After leaving the gold standard, the US made oil trade dependent on dollars, creating endless demand. This let America live beyond its means for decades. But now, cracks are showing. Countries like China and Russia are trading outside the dollar, challenging US dominance. Washington, like London before it, is in denial. Politicians treat the dollar's supremacy as a right, ignoring the warning signs. They dismiss moves to de-dollarize as minor annoyances. But the foundations of American power are being quietly dismantled. The privilege of the reserve currency isn't permanent, and the world is moving on. Thus, before its fall, Britain ignored every warning sign: trade deficits, uncompetitive industries, and the soaring cost of empire. It sold off assets to pay for daily expenses, living on borrowed time. The colonies became a financial drain, but leaders clung to the illusion of prestige. Now, look at America. Massive trade deficits, offshored manufacturing, and dependence on rivals for essentials. Trillions spent on endless wars with no clear victory, just mounting debt. Domestic problems pile up: crumbling infrastructure, healthcare crises, social unrest. The warning lights are flashing brighter than ever, but the people in charge keep their eyes shut. Like Britain, America is spending a fortune to police the world while neglecting home. The cost of empire is unsustainable. The consequences are coming. Empires don't always decline slowly. They can collapse in a flash. History is full of moments where what seems stable and unshakable suddenly gives way, as if the ground itself disappears beneath your feet. The warning signs are often there, but the final fall is always more abrupt than anyone expects. Britain's weakness built up for decades, quietly eroding its power and influence. But it was the Suez Crisis that triggered a sudden, irreversible fall. In just a matter of days, the world saw the British Empire lose its grip, its authority slipping away almost overnight. The loss of reserve currency status is the tipping point, the moment when confidence evaporates and the world's financial system pivots. It's not just about money, it's about trust, prestige, and the ability to shape global events. Trust erodes gradually, like rust eating away at steel, but then it breaks all at once. The world's faith in a currency or a nation can vanish in a heartbeat, leaving chaos in its wake. For Britain, Suez was that moment. The world dumped pounds, and the empire crumbled overnight. The illusion of control was shattered, and the consequences rippled across the globe. The same danger now faces the US. The world is watching, and the cracks are beginning to show. America's dominance is not guaranteed forever. The world is quietly moving away from the dollar, buying gold, trading in other currencies, and making deals that sidestep the greenback. These shifts are subtle, but they add up, signaling a change in the global order. All it takes is one crisis to trigger a stampede. When panic sets in, everyone rushes for the exits at once, and the system unravels at breathtaking speed. If the world rushes to sell US assets, the dollar's value will plummet. The consequences would be immediate and severe, sending shockwaves through every market and every household. America's ability to fund its debt will vanish. The government would face impossible choices, forced to act quickly as the world's confidence evaporates. Interest rates will soar, forcing impossible choices: slash spending, raise taxes, or print money and risk hyperinflation. Each option comes with its own set of dangers, and none are easy. The illusion of power, propped up by the petrodollar, could shatter in weeks. What took generations to build could unravel in a matter of days. The fall from the top isn't a gentle slope. It's a sudden, terrifying drop. The higher you climb, the harder and faster you fall when the support disappears. History doesn't repeat, but it sure does rhyme. The patterns are familiar, even if the details change. We've seen this story before, and we may see it again. The next Suez moment could be just around the corner. The world is holding its breath, waiting to see who will stumble next and how far they'll fall. Why should you care? Because if the dollar loses its reserve status, everyone will feel it. The perks Americans enjoy, cheap imports, low interest rates, a strong safety net, depend on the dollar's special role. Lose that, and prices skyrocket. Savings evaporate. Pensions and investments collapse. Companies stop investing, layoffs soar, and unemployment spikes. The government would be forced into brutal austerity, slashing spending on everything. Social and political turmoil would follow. This isn't theory, it's what happened to Britain, and it could happen here. So what can you do? Stop denying reality. Pay attention to the warning signs. Reduce your own debt. Save in assets that can't be printed away. Prepare for a world where America isn't number one. The party's almost over and the exit signs are flashing. It's time to get ready.